Obviously, today I woke up to the fantastic news that Labour did hold Batley and Spen in the by-election, which, to be honest, is fantastic news. But we are not going to go over that today, because at the moment I want to wait for more information to come in. I know that it was very, very close. I've heard so far 2 numbers, and again, I haven't been able to confirm which is true, that we either held it by 300 votes or 700 votes, and either way, that is incredibly narrow. That is literally hanging on there to like a skyscraper by your little finger. So we just managed to hang on there. But this does reveal some very, very problems that Labour has to tackle and has to deal with. And it starts with Starmer. And like I say, we will discuss that tomorrow on tomorrow's Good Morning Walk. But today, I want to talk to you, moreover, about what happened in the Chesham and Amersham by-election. Because for all intents and purposes, that was meant to be a very safe seat. And more information is starting to come out about that, about interviews with locals, focus groups in the area, and they are starting to reveal some very, very interesting things. So, as much as it is important to talk about Batley and Spen and what went on there, I also think it is very important to focus on what went on here. Because we've said it before, a lot of people at the moment seem to think that Boris Johnson is untouchable. No one is untouchable, because sooner or later something will happen, or there will just be, the straw that breaks the camel's back phrase comes into mind, and Boris will crumble, and his downfall will be hard and brutal. And already there are talks of Conservative rebels preparing such manoeuvres. Like I say, we saw Matt Hancock. We still don't know who released that. So the way that this could go could be very interesting, very, very fast. But we're just going to have to wait and see what happens. So before we jump into today's article, please do remember to hit that like, share and subscribe button. And of course, down below there are links to my Patreon page, as well as one-off donation link called Buy Me a Coffee, where you can, buy me a coffee. And as always, thank you very much to all those people who do support me that way. So, this comes from the Yorkshire Bylines. And the title is Neighbourhood Whispers: The Quiet Rebels of Amersham. So, on June the 15th, Ed Daly's super-efficient electoral machine in the Berrylands, Kingston, informed me that there might be a tight result at the Chesham and Amersham, and I could spare any time with a car to get out there and go voting on, to go out there to help out on polling day. I wasn't born yesterday, quite the reverse. I've been here many times before, not least in Esher, where Dominic Raab retained his seat at the shock incumbent in 2019. At the time, I didn't want to face my maker, with the burden on my conscience that I could have carried one last voter to the poll who might have tilted the balance in our favour. Chesham and Amersham has been a Conservative stronghold for as long as anyone could remember, or at least 1974, when the constituency was carved out of the Churton Hills. Its 2 previous incumbents, Sir Ian Gilmore and Dame Cheryl Gillian, were both paid-up members of the less nasty version of the Tory party, the civilised, one nation and approachable. Their seats were among the least ricketiest in the country, and the Lib Dems have run second to the Conservatives in previous elections, but a long way behind Sarah Green and their new challenger, and they had a good record as a local campaigner, but unknown on the national political scene. And electioneering is not what it was. It has gone digital. I can remember the days when, as a candidate or even a ward chair, I paced up and down canvassing cards from General Election Register and sent out the team with the state-of-the-art clipboards. In Amersham, we downloaded an app instead, which gave me a map of the district, which house numbers, names of voters, previous canvassing returns, and some questions to ask, and responses were duly noted and sent back to the constituents' HQ and then relayed to the Lib Dem HQ back in London, which compiled the statistical profile and presumably leaked the results to Sir John Constantine in Strathclyde University, who would then inform the BBC. Then nothing was wasted. So before I even stepped foot on the doorstep, I was told what some issues in Amersham were, and what were likely to be. And some of 55% of the electorate voted to remain in the EU. But Boris Johnson's hard Brexit confirmed their worst fears. There was also opposition to HS2, the high-speed rail link, which was going to go through the constituency. And of course, new planning laws threatened the village of Chilterners. The government talk of levelling up may have appealed to the Red Wall voters in the north, but it had very little appeal down south, where they feared for a levelling down. These matters were noted in the algorithms for Chesham and Amershams, and the Lib Dem campaign was crafted to exploit it. There was, however, another factor noted by Dominic Grieve, the former Tory MP for Beaconsfield nearby. This, he said, was a pretty sophisticated electorate, and its voters had come to the conclusion that Boris Johnson was a charlatan. That was my impression, even from walking down the street from Chilford Street, Giles, wearing a Lib Dem buttonhole. Nobody liked the government. Even those planning to vote for the Conservative apologised for doing so. It was not necessarily to ask questions. Some just wanted to explain why, even though they had always voted Tory. They were not doing so now and gave a litany of reasons, both local, national, and sometimes very funny. The Johnson photo calls were the source of much amusement. Who was meant to be minding the number 10 Downing Street office when Bojo was teaching in a primary school on Monday, supervising a steel factory on Tuesday, and then wearing a mask and a hospital gown for the rest of the week. His marriage in Westminster Cathedral was also another source for hilarity, annulling his previous marriage and then delegitimising his children. They must have been reviled, was the general opinion. Better off without him. Those who, like me, enjoy a good night out could do far worse than to wander through the bright lights and speakeasy joints of Little Chelmsford, listening to the scurrious stories about Matt Hancock, Priti Patel, Gavin Williamson, and of course Bojo himself, some of which sounded so far-fetched that they must be untrue, although, well, they maybe just might be. And there were some, however, who felt that the state of affairs was now well beyond a joke. The government was incompetent, untrustworthy, and ruinous to our national reputation. Throughout my life, the Tory party has been divided by its ultra-patriotic and its liberal wings, between those who pine for the loss of empire and those who seek another solution to the troublesome question of where do we go from here. The delicate stitchcraft that keep these two wings flapping together has now come to part, with those who seek to handle a mixed economy along Keynesian lines are losing patience with the monetarists and Freddie Mance, who were inspired by Belridge's vision of a welfare state and are disgusted by the talk of privatisation. Those who agree with Karl Popper's description of an open society are repelled by the ruthlessness of which Patel seeks to defend our borders. And there are matters of principle, not day-to-day politics. And yes, the potholes and the cracked pavements might be a local disgrace, but they do not outrage the soul and firebrand the consequence in a way that accounts for the extent of the quiet rebellion in the Chiltern and apparently the 25% swing from the Tory government that was previously a safe Tory seat. So I would like to believe with Ed Daly that the result in Chesham and Amersham does represent a turning point in national politics, and I hope the Liberals with the Conservative Party do take this opportunity to sever their link with those who boast of sovereignty and independence but shiver and cower under the flag. I'd like the Liberals with a small L to join those with the big L. Through party affiliations matter less than the reasons behind them. And my account of this by-election is, of course, purely anecdotal. In a campaign where, according to the defendant Conservative Peter Fleet, the Lib Dems threw the kitchen sink and everything else into winning, my contribution was nothing more than a plastic teaspoon. But sometimes a random visitor can be left with a strong impression that it outweighs any statistical analysis, and this is what happened. So that's, to be honest, a very, very interesting analysis from someone who went down to help in the Cheshire and Amersham by-election from the Lib Dem side. And I do think that paints a very, very interesting picture, especially for future politics, because as I've said before, Johnson is walking a very, very tight rope, because he's got his own internal matters in the current Conservative Party to deal with, that being of those who want the global agenda, the global Britain agenda, and of course the levelling up agenda. And we've said before, neither one can succeed without undermining the other. And of course he's got this very tight tightrope to walk, where the more he seems to appeal to the northern seats, the less he seems to appeal to the southern seats. So there's a very tight tightrope to walk, where Johnson, going into the next general election, could be in a serious problem of where Northerners have cottoned on and realised that he isn't going to level them up, because, like I say, a lot of the people in the northern seats are basically wanting their rewards now. They want their pound of flesh. They voted for the Conservatives, and if they don't get it, then they ain't going to vote for the Conservatives again. And then you've got the situation in the north. And this creates, I think, a very interesting balance where the Conservatives could lose seats both in the north and the south of England, and end up losing power, but in an interesting way, where it ends up in a hung parliament. And I think that could be a very interesting direction. Of course, who knows what could happen, but I would hope this time that the Lib Dems don't make the same mistake and ally with the Conservatives, and at least ally with the Labour Party this time, which is, to be honest, what they should have done last time. So, as always, thanks for watching. Please do remember to hit that like, share and subscribe button. And of course, do remember we will be having our Good Morning Walk tomorrow at 8 o'clock, so I'll see you all bright and early for that tomorrow. And as always, thank you for watching, and we'll see you all next time.